Welcome back everyone to the part 3 of how to reaccess your chess 4th edition. In this video we are going to discuss 8 different diagrams, very critical diagrams about the minor piece knight, how to use it, how to play with the knight and how to play against the knight. We are going to look at it, and it would be very critical to in your middle game, because using a knight is a very tricky piece. It's the psychopath of a chessboard. So yeah, using it effectively to its 100% capacity and to play against knight is a very big thing. So this video is going to be extremely helpful for you. So now let's quickly check out the 8 critical diagrams. Yeah, so coming to the first diagram, we have a game between Vasily and Topalov versus Vasily Ivanchuk from 2008 MPL tournament. And we are not going to look out the opening, just going to right to the middle game, the main position we are going to look at. But yeah, all those who want to look at the game, they can. It was a French defense. White played the knight c3. We have the position. I'm just going to the main position. And here, at this very moment, white played the move bishop to e2. So you can just pause the video and try to assess the position if you want, and try to guess who is better, what is happening in the position. So yeah, all those who have already assessed the position, I must tell them. So it is black who is slightly better. Now, like, there are many players who would be thinking how, because black is having double pawns on the b file. But guys, the advantages of black, first of all, here is black is having a connected passed pawn, not a connected passed pawn because there is a c pawn, but a very connected, strong pawn on d file. Second, black is having the open a file. Third, black is also having the open c file. So you can see the c2 pawn is extremely soft. So it is one of the very key reasons that white is having all these benefits against these double pawns. So basically, black is having a much better position in this position. But it is very important for black to continue the right way to play the position, or else black is simply going to lose its advantage. So here's a moment. What are you going to play in this position? What is your main agenda? What are you going to do in this position? So you can pause the video and try to find the move. Try to find the plan basically, and you can resume the video. So basically here, Vasily Ivanchuk with the black pieces played the move knight to d7, which was simply a beautiful move. The reason is extremely logical. The knight on b6 is simply a pathetic piece. It is just doing nothing, just staring at his own pawns. The b3 pawn is already very strong, covering the c4 and the a4 square for the knight. The b6 square is extremely pathetic. If I just ask you guys, what is the most ideal square for the knight on the whole chessboard? You might say that many of the players would say e4, but guys, it's a light square. Your opponent is having the light square bishop, so you can't really say that, because your opponent can simply capture the knight, so it's no real point. So it should be a dark square. And I would say the most logical square would be to put the knight on d4, because it hits the pawn on c2, it hits the bishop, and it also protects the pawn. So there are many advantages if the knight reaches to d4. So that is the very reason Vasily Ivanchuk played the move knight to d7. And if you see, you can't really capture the c2 pawn because the knight is hanging. But after knight d7, the queen is extremely free to capture the c2 pawn. And there is also an idea of knight b8, knight to c6, and putting the knight to d4. So it's a very deep move. So after knight to d7, we have the move rook to a2. If white captures the pawn, it is really impossible, because after queen f5 check, white simply loses the bishop and it's already game over. You can't play queen b4. I can trade the queen and you are losing the rook in the end. So after knight to d7, we have rook to a2 in the game. If bishop to d3, trying to defend the pawn, here we simply have knight to c5, hitting the bishop. And if you try to castle, black can simply take, and after queen c3, many things are happening. You have to trade the queens, and suddenly a pawn is hanging, so black is already better. So after knight to c5, a move bishop to e2 comes in our mind. But after knight to a6, the knight is all jumping around. You can't still capture because of queen f5. So bishop d3, still protecting, and now queen f5 check. king to e2. If you try to play a move like b4, knight into b4 is strong. After queen b4, a b4, rook is hanging. So king to e2 is the fourth move, and after knight c5, rook to a2. If you try to push, queen f4 is a very strong move, and after rook c1, knight takes, pawn takes, rook c2 is a very strong move, and this gives a very good advantage to black after rook c8. And here you can't, capture the knight because the queen is hanging. So here after takes, rook c3, b4, queen c7, and again black is very comfortable in the position. Black is the only one who is pushing in the position. a3 is very weak. Black is having the full control of the c5. So overall, black is very comfortable. So knight d7, we have rook a2, and here we have knight to b8 by Vasily Ivanchuk. Short castle, knight c6, queen to d2, queen b6 check, queen a5, queen into a5, rook into a5. And this position is already better for black. If one of your minor piece isn't earning its keep, put the lazy thing to work. In the case of a knight, wishful thinking won't get it to the dream post. It's up to you figure out a way to get it there. So what does it mean? You can see how the knight from the b6 square came to c6. A very beautiful square for the knight, the most ideal square for the knight, followed by knight d4. And once the rook reaches on a5, it's all collapsing for white. Knight b4 is a very strong move, hitting the rook. Even knight d4 is also a very strong move. And black can even play rook 8, double attack, and it's really game over for black. And eventually, Vasily Ivanchuk was able to win the game in the end. So this was the first diagram. The basic point was to maneuver the knight. You can see how. Let me take you to the position. Yeah, at this very position, you can just see how the knight was simply a bad piece on b6, and black simply moves the knight. Many players in these types of positions get frustrated. They think they can't move the queen because the knight is hanging. They just don't think that they can first move the knight and then they can move the queen. They just get frustrated because they can't move the queen because the knight is hanging. So you must figure it out. You must play it very calmly, and you will soon find a way. So this was all about this particular diagram. So now it's time to move to the second diagram. So coming to the second diagram, here again we have a game between M. Roiz versus C. Balogh. This game was from 2007, Heraklion, and both the players must have been a very strong players in their times. So it was a game. We have knight f3, knight f6, g3, d5. I'm just quickly going to take to the main position, not wasting any particular second. Bishop b7 takes checks, knight c3, bishop e7, e4 takes checks. And here, the point here is, black played the move knight c5. You can't really capture the pawn because after knight e4, bishop e4, it looks like black is simply a pawn up. But guys, you can see how black king is still in the center. You can use that king by playing the move queen e2. It's a very strong move. After queen e2, the bishop is attacked. And if you simply pull your bishop back, rook e1 is a strong move because the bishop is hanging. You can no longer castle because you will simply lose a piece. That's the whole point. After queen e2, if black plays knight c5 defending the bishop, rook d1 hitting the queen, and white is having too many compensation, b4 is coming up, and white is completely winning the position. So that is the main point. Black can't really open up the position until his king doesn't get to the safety. So after d to e4, we have the move knight to c5, triple attack. And here we have the beautiful move knight to d4. Short castle. Again, the point here is after knight f takes, knight takes, bishop takes. Bishop takes, knight takes. Rook e1 is a strong move. Knight goes, and queen e2. You can't capture the knight because one movement is happening. And if you try to castle, knight c6 is already a very strong move, getting a piece and winning the game. So you can see many things are happening. You can't still capture the pawn on e4. So we have short castle by black, and now black is all ready to capture the pawn on e4. But now white isn't going to give him that free pawn. Here we simply have the move e5 hitting the knight, bishop trade, knight to d5, knight to c6. We have a Godzilla of knights. Knight into c3, pawn into c3, queen to e8. So first of all, it looks like a bad pawn structure for white. I can definitely agree to it. But guys, in the exchange here we have is black is simply going passive with queen e. Black can't really trade off the queens because the bishop is hanging with a check, and black will lose a piece in the end. Queen e8 and queen d5. And in exchange of a bad pawn structure, white got this huge amount of activity, which looks practically very good chances for white. And in this position, black, if you try to think deeper for black, there isn't any good move for black to play in the position. How will you even try to continue the position? White is so much comfortable. White can play rook d1, f4, even f5 maybe. Maybe simply getting the bishop to a3 and stuff like that. It's so easy play for white. So black played the move king h8, which was not the best. Black could have minimized his damage by playing the move knight f4, hitting the pawn, and after bishop d2, bishop c5, it is the best black can achieve. But guys, practically speaking, I don't particularly like this knight on a4 that much because it's in the side there is no square for the knight to go back, and it looks very uncomfortable for black. I don't know, maybe the idea could be to play f4, f5, followed by rook f4, hitting the knight. So yeah, here black went for the move king h8, which looks very practical. Bishop a3 now, very strong move, f5, and here we simply play f4. Simply fixing the pawn structure. White is having a very strong pass pawn. Here rook to g8, rook to d1. So if white can also play a move like knight takes, queen takes, bishop takes, pawn takes. But guys, this position is definitely better for white because of the pawn, a strong pawn on e5, but it does not maximize white's advantage. So that is the reason playing a move like rook a8 d1 first is a very strong move. Bishop to f8 now, and now knight to d8. And suddenly, you see how this knight is super powerful on d8 square. Knight to c7 is coming, knight to f7 is coming up, and the game is over. So basically, the knight on the 8th rank is just too dangerous for white, for your opponent, because he would simply collapse. There are so many, like, your opponent is simply in the post of your opponent's territory, simply destroying your opponent's territory. So in the end, black was forced to sacrifice an exchange, and now white is simply an exchanger. White simply traded off the pieces, simply coming back, rook f3, and after only 24 moves, black decided to resign the game, and white simply won the game. So basically, this was a very interesting theme, the knight on the 8th rank, a very powerful knight. Because if you give one single move to black, for example, to white, for example, if you after bishop f8, if you try to play a move like a5 in the position, white can simply continue to improve his position with rook f1. You have to make some moves. So that was the reason bishop f8 was played, and now knight d8, and it was simply over. So this was a beautiful second diagram, how to use the knight on the 8th rank. And yeah, a very interesting quote. Chess mastery is a mixture of knowledge, awareness, and willpower. You can just, it is a very interesting quote. So this was the second diagram. So now let's move to the third diagram. So yeah, we have third diagram, and this was a training game played in 2004 in Los Angeles. And it's a very interesting diagram. Basically, what's happening in this whole diagram, I must explain. First of all, white is better in this position, and now how, I must tell you. So first of all, white is having a extremely good square on f5 for the knight, and black is having a very strong f4 square for his one. But the problem here is black can't really achieve his knight on f4, because if he wants to achieve his knight on f4, he needs to come on the e6 and g6 square, which squares are extremely poisonous. So black can't really achieve his goal of putting the knight on f4, whereas white can. White can simply put the knight on f5 because both the e3 and g3 square are empty for the knight. So, and the second point here is the bishop on g7 is simply bad. Looking at his own pawns, the pawns are in the dark square, whereas the white's light square bishop has successfully able to get out of his pawn chain, As you can see, the pawns are on the light square and the bishop is on the light square. So if the bishop would be around over here, it would have been simply back. But as the bishop came out from this pawn chain, and if white is able to trade off the bishop, it would be simply a good bishop versus bad bishop. A bad bishop versus good bishop, and it's already good for white. So you can see how we can simply assess this position and can declare this position is already better for white. But the basic point here is, definitely the knight can reach to f5, but the point here is, if the knight reaches on f5, the bishop can simply capture the knight. And as we know, in the closed position, knights are very healthy. So yeah, it's not a good idea for white to put the knight on f5 immediately. So first, white went for the move rook to b3. And the idea here is bishop a4, knight a4, knight to d7, and the idea here is rook to b1. White is aiming to make a triple battery on the b file, which is a very strong idea. Queen b1, bishop f8, and okay, here we have b into c5, b into c5, and now rook b7. Rook b7, rook b7, queen f5, queen c2, defending the defending the knight, knight b8, rook b6, a very strong move, and basically this traps the queen. If you go back with the queen trying to defend the knight here, queen b3, and you don't really find a good move for black to continue the position, and it is practically dead position for black. So knight to b8, rook b6, and now suddenly the queen is trapped after bishop d2, and black simply resigned the game. And after rook b6, you can't go queen to e1 because it's still there. After knight is c3, rook is coming to b1, and the queen is again trapped. So yeah, and the point here is after knight d7, you can't capture the pawn because of knight f5. The bishop is hanging, and even the rook. So this was the point. Like, you must how to assess the position, how to trade a bad piece versus a good piece. And you can see how white first trade off the bishops, and now white is ready to put the knight on f5. This is the main point. If white wants, he can put the knight on f5, and after knight d7, we have rook h b1, and if black tries to capture the pawn, you can capture with the a pawn. Capturing with the rook is also fine, but I guess it gives black the opportunity to put the knight on c5, and it also makes the c4 pawn a bit softer, so it's not a good idea. You must capture with the pawn, and now c5. Once c5 comes in the board, it is game over for black. So that is the main point, how to continue the position. Like how to continue the position. It's like you can see how white made white first trade off the bishop, bad bishop with a good bishop, and making us pay for the knight. And this is how you should evaluate the position, how you should assess the position, who is better in the game. So this was the third diagram. So now let's move to the fourth diagram. So yeah, coming to the fourth diagram, we have this particular position on the board, and it's white to play. And if I ask you this, if I just ask you in this position, what are you going to play in the position from white? What is going to be your answer? So if you are having 10 seconds, you can find the move, or else yeah, I'm going to tell the answer. So the answer in this position is to play simply bishop d5, and suddenly the knight looks horrible. The knight simply is trapped on d8. The bishop covers all the squares of knight. It is simply a bad piece. Now knight is not doing anything. Like, the only way for white to win this position is to promote this pawn to a queen. And if you make a move like a5, knight c6, king f6, and suddenly black can stop the pawn, and black can simply capture the pawn. And that's the reason you must first play bishop d5, and after king f6, you can push the pawn, even sack the bishop, and you can make a queen. And the point here is, even if black tries to play knight e6, now you can capture the knight, and after pawn push, you can see how this pawn makes a square like this, and black can't really enter the square. Black is one step late, and white can make a queen, and white can win the game. So that is the main point, how to stop the knight if you are having the bishop. So yeah, you must remember these types of structure, how to block the knight. It's a very good idea. So yeah, this was the fourth diagram. So now let's move to the fifth diagram. So yeah, we have the fifth diagram on the board. So it's black to play, and what would you play in this position if you're black in this position? You can pause the video. The most natural move is g4, hitting the knight. The knight is having the only square on g1. If you go knight h4, you simply lose. You simply lose. Like takes, and black is winning. Knight g1 and knight f3. And suddenly, the knight on g1 is simply trapped. It's simply trapped. Like, knight is inside a cage, inside a pawn cage, and he's having nowhere to go. Every square is poisonous. So yeah, we can see how to make a knight simply a bad piece by putting it in the corner, putting it inside a pawn cage. It can even be worse, even if the knight is trapped by his own pawns. We are going to look at the next diagram, the diagram number 6. So now let's move to it. So yeah, we have this diagram number 6 on the board, the knight trapped because of traitor pawn. So what do I mean by here is the knight is simply trapped by the pawns on g3 and f2. Like, white would be extremely happy if there wouldn't be a single pawn. Like, if there wouldn't be a g pawn, if there wouldn't be a f pawn. But like, all because of the 2 pawns, because of his own 2 pawns, white is losing the game now. Like, white can even resign the game. It's black to play. Sorry, it's white to play, and white played king c1, king d3, king d1. And it looks like after c2 check, king c1, black can play king c3, and it's a draw. But here, guys, here comes the twist. Black is going to play king e2, and eventually he can capture the knight for free, and eventually he can win the game. So this was a very critical diagram, a very, very interesting diagram, how the knight is trapped because of his traitor pawns. And yeah, so you can see it can be even worse, yeah, because when the knight is trapped by his own pawns inside a cage. So this was the diagram number 6. So now let's move to the next diagram, diagram number 7. Okay, so we have diagram number 7 on the board. It's again a game between A. Galkin versus E. Romanov. And this game is from the 2007 60th Russian Championship. It was a game we are going to look out it very quickly. E4, E5, we have a standard royal phase opening. B1, B5, bishop B3, C3, H3, knight F5, hitting the bishop. White protects the bishop. We have B4, queen C7, takes takes, A3, B5. Here we have this. Many things happen in the game. But our main agenda here over here. So after knight to b7 on the move number 25, black, what is happening in the position I must tell you. First of all, the knight on h5 looks simply a bad piece. Because like the knight wants to go on f4 but he can't because of the pawn on g3. The pawn on g3 is extremely beautifully placed, covering the f4 square. And the knight on h5 simply looks a hopeless piece. Whereas, as you can see, black played a move like knight to b7. And if you give black a single move, for example, if white makes a move like rook to fg1, a random move, knight c5, and the knight suddenly looks good on c5. And now if you try to hit the knight by playing the move b4, now black is very comfortable. Black can even put the knight on a4, which is a good square for the knight. And black can even capture the bishop, which is also a great thing for the knight. And it somehow feels good for black because black is again having the bishop pair. So this is what black wants to achieve. So what are you going to play in this position if you're white in the position? So how are you going to continue the position? You know what is black going to do. So what are you going to play to stop this idea of black? So try to find the move. So yeah, so the move in this position is to play the move b4. And it is a very concrete move. The idea of b4 is very interesting. You are simply taking away the square of a5 and c5 from the black knight. And if you look closely now, both the knights looks extremely hopeless. There is not a single square, and not a single square on the board which looks good for the knights. Because the knight can't really reach any of good squares. He wants to reach on f4, but he can't. He want to reach on c4, but he can't. Yeah, so that's the point. And white simply stopped black's plan. And now black played the move knight d8, and we have to make a plan with f6, knight f7. But yeah, it's a bad thing for black now because white was able to find this beautiful b4 move. It requires a very good positional understanding. So this was the 7th diagram. It was all about how to stop your opponent's plan from execution, how to stop basically up. So basically it was using pawn to limit the activity of knights is a very important strategic idea. So this was the 7th diagram, a very instructive one. So now let's move to the final diagram, which was one of the very favorite diagram of the author. So we have the 8th diagram. It's again a game, but yeah, we are going to quickly check it out. Yeah, we have d4, knight f6, knight f3, c5. We have this. Bishop b5 check, knight d7, a4. Trying to grab space on the queen side. Short castle, a6. Bishop e2. Not giving up the good bishop for the bad knight. b6, rook e1, knight e8, bishop f4, queen c7, knight queen d2. Takes, bishop h6. It's a bad bishop. You can also play bishop g3. But I guess after h5, king h7, bishop h6, the bishop maybe get good. So bishop h6 is also fine. We have a bishop trade, king takes, and we have this position. So what is happening in this position? It's a very interesting diagram, and if you're able to solve this diagram, I guess all I have covered in the videos, in the past 3 videos, must be very effective, and yeah, you must be really good in this thing of moving the knights. So what's happening in the position here is, if I ask you guys, what are the main weaknesses of black in the position? What are you going to say? You can pause the video and try to find the weakness of black in this position. Okay, so the weakness of black in this position are the e5 pawn, c5 pawn, and the b6 pawn. Yes, c5 pawn as well. It is a very logical thing. It looks like the c5. How can the c5 pawn be a weak? Because it is simply protected by the b6 pawn. But guys, once white plays the move a5, black pawn have to take off. He has to push, and eventually, the moment black pushes up the pawn, once the moment black do something with his b pawn, the c pawn is eventually going to get weak. So yeah, that's the idea. What are you going to play in this position? What is going to be your plan in the position? I'm not asking for a single move. I want to know the plan. So tell me the 8th diagram plan in the comment box below before watching the video, before continuing the video. Yeah, what are you going to play in this position? You know the weaknesses are these. So what are you going to play in the position to threaten this weakness or to put more pressure on your opponent? So you can pause the video and try to find the plan. Okay, if you are able to find this, mine efforts of making a video have been successful. If you are able to find the move knight to b1, if you are able to find even knight to d1, it's still fine. This move is also pretty much good move because it's the same idea. So yeah, knight to b1, extremely powerful move. You can see the arrows, and you can already figure out what is the idea. The idea is to put the knight on a3, put the knight on c4, hitting the pawn on b6, hitting the queen on d6, and also the pawn on e5. And once the knight reaches on c4, it's going to be game over for black. There is no play for black. So black plays queen f6, queen to c3, and now you can maneuver the knight with d2 as well. Knight to d6, hitting the pawn, knight to d2, e6. And at the place of okay, after e6 we have the move a5. And now suddenly, if you do something with the b pawn, the c5 pawn is simply going to collapse, and it's already better for one. And if you don't play e6, and if you try to play a move like a5, then suddenly after bishop b5, the position is already bad for black. A very nice outpost for the bishop on b5. Knight c4 is coming in. The b pawn is simply bad because of this pawn structure, and the a4 pawn is simply covering the b5 square, and white can simply play the knight c4, and it's already better for white. So yeah, this was a beautiful move. This was a move. Knight b1 was simply amazing. Like the idea is too deep. Knight a3, knight c4. Not too deep, but yeah, very interesting. So if you're able to find this, it is simply amazing. I don't have any good words. So yeah, these were the 8 critical diagrams, which was very crucial. You can share this diagrams with your friends. You can share this video with your friends. Subscribe to our channel if you are new, and make sure to like the video if you like this, all the 8 diagrams. So now tomorrow we are going to come up with a different topic, because in this particular topic about the knights, we have reached to an end of the topic minor pieces knight particularly. So yeah, so now let's check it out. What is going to be our tomorrow's topic? So yeah, till then, stay tuned and keep watching One Shot Chess. So now get out of here.